everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jessie and today we are talking about my top fantasy reads of all time. First one, and probably what goes down as my number one, is The Way of Kings, which is the first book in the Stormlight Archive. Yes, the Stormlight Archive series by Brandon Sanderson. This is very high fantasy. It's set in a totally unique world. The world building is unbelievable. I can't even really give you a summary of the plot because it's one of those where you're following a bunch of different characters in a totally different world. There's a war going on. It's just very political. The magic system's really well thought out. And my favorite part is just the world is so unique and so well thought out, which is par the course for Brandon Sanderson. If you've ever read any of his work, that's pretty much how he always writes his worlds, is just very well thought out, very detail oriented, so highly recommend. The rest are in no particular order, but another one of my favorite fantasies is The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. I hope I said that right. So this one follows a group of kids who are searching for this dead king, and that's really all I can say. It's a very whimsical plot and very much character driven, so if you like your books more plot driven, I don't know that I necessarily recommend this one, but it's some of the best characters that I've read. I absolutely loved the friend group in this. It's very much a high school buddy friend group who you just want to be best friends with, and you're just following them through this very unique and whimsical story. So if you like more character driven, I recommend this one. The third book I have for you is Scythe by Neal Shusterman. This is one that I recently read and easily goes down as one of my favorite reads so far of this year for sure, but also one of my favorite reads of all time. This one follows a world that's very much set in the future where artificial intelligence, what used to be the cloud, which is what we have now, becomes so intelligent that it cures all sickness, disease, and no one dies natural deaths anymore. So to control the population, there are these things called Scythes, and the Scythes are pretty much tasked with controlling population. Now that sounds very dark, and this is a dark book with a very heavy premise, and there's definitely some pretty disturbing scenes, I would say, so tread carefully if you aren't into that sort of violence, but it's so unique, so good. The world is so cool, and just the way these characters deal with their own morality, it brings up so many philosophical discussions that I just think are so fascinating. So if you haven't read this one, it's absolutely up there as one of my top fantasy reads, and I highly recommend, even with how heavy the premise of the book is. Another one of my favorite fantasies should come as no surprise. It's Game of Thrones. Look how beautiful this version of it is. I found this version on Book Depository if any of you are looking for it. Do I even need to explain myself with this one? Read it if you're a fantasy fan. It's dense. Like, this is a dense series. So if you do not like dense fantasy books, you probably won't find yourself very entertained by this, but I mean, it's popular for a reason. It's amazing, so I recommend. The next book I have for you is The Knife of Never Letting Go by Patrick Ness. So this is book one in a trilogy called Chaos Walking, and there's a movie that's supposed to be coming out called Chaos Walking, starring the guy from Spider-Man, Tom something, and Daisy Ridley. This book is so good. It follows this boy who lives in a town where there are no women. And in this town, every man can hear other men's thoughts. So everyone can hear what everyone's thinking. It's called the noise. It's constantly in their heads. And the main character, this boy, goes out into the woods one day and hears silence for the first time. And I'm not going to go into any more detail, but you do find out kind of slowly maybe why there aren't women in this world and how everyone can hear everyone's thoughts. It is so unique and such a cool writing style that Patrick Ness has. It's told all from this boy's point of view, and he is the most adorable character. I absolutely loved him. It's a pretty heavy book, like especially if you get further into the series, there is quite a lot of violence. So I do warn the viewers of that. But if you can get through this one, you're gonna love, love, love the series. And I picked this up in the bookstore without really knowing anything about it, and I liked going into it blind. So if you want to read the synopsis, you can, but I kind of just recommend picking it up, reading it, seeing what you think, because it is one fun, wild ride. So those are my top 5 fantasy books that I have right now. I'm still planning on reading quite a lot more fantasy before the end of the year, so my list may change coming up in the future. But for right now, those are my top 5. I'd love to hear your top fantasy picks down below, so make sure to comment, recommend your favorites to me. Fantasy is my favorite genre, so always looking for more recommendations. And until next time, bye.